Hello, my name is Amy Johansson, and I am a graduate writing consultant at the Writing Center at California Lutheran University. And today I am going to talk a little bit about APA documentation style. Okay. So, what is in this presentation? First, we're going to talk about what APA documentation style is. Then we're going to talk a little bit about why we cite and why we actually need to cite, so the importance of citations. And after that, I'm going to cover when we cite, how we cite, and that includes integrating sources, attribution phases, in-text citations, and reference lists, and I'll go over this in a little bit as well. Preparing a manuscript for submission, and a couple of more resources that could be good to have just as a reference. So why use APA style? We use a website called Purdue OWL that we recommend all students to use, and this quote is actually from their website. It provides readers with cues that can use to follow your ideas more efficiently and to locate information of interest to them and establish your credibility or ethos in the field by demonstrating an awareness of your audience and their needs as fellow researchers. So why does APA style matter? And why does formatting matter? It's to accurately and clearly display your research. It's to make sure your reader follows your ideas and can identify your main point. It's easier to read for other scholars following the same formatting rules. And it's also used for publication. So if you ever want to publish your work in a journal, you will need to use APA style. That's the most common style that's used in journals. So why does APA style matter? It's to avoid plagiarism, to generate consistency in citation. So when you write a paper, you want to make sure that you stay consistent. So you want to use APA style throughout your entire paper and not use Chicago style and then APA style, but try to stay consistent. And to give credit to texts referenced in the paper. So some students come into the Writing Center and they're confused about when to cite. We generally tell them or give them a couple of rules to follow when this happens. So quoting someone else's words is one of them. So if you're just stating something word for word by another person, that's when you would cite. Paraphrasing someone else's words or ideas. So this is not necessarily saying it just stating word for word, but it's when you're actually rephrasing something, so paraphrasing, so you're restructuring the sentence. You also have to cite when you're summarizing or generalizing someone else's ideas, or you're referencing another person's work, or whenever someone else's work has been critical in developing your own. So anytime you're using an idea that's not your own, that's when you have to cite, no matter if it's a quote or if you decide to paraphrase or summarize what you just read. So think of your citations as providing credibility to your own work. When you cite, you show that you are a research scholar. And you also put your work in the context of a larger scholarly discourse through citations. So there are three components of citations that we generally go over with students. The first one is the attribution phase. And an attribution phase is a word or a phrase used to introduce a quote, summary, or paraphrase of someone else's ideas, words, research theories, or methodologies. The second component is an in-text citation. So when referencing sources, ideas, words, research theories, methodologies, and papers, follow a specific format which allows the reader to find the full citation in the reference list. For APA, both the author and the date of publication of the text cited will be in the citation. And the third component is a reference list. which is a list of sources referred to in the paper following the APA guidelines for easy reader access. So here are a couple of examples of attribution phases. They basically provide a transition between the source and the writer. Okay, so the first example is a direct quote. So you would say Smith, 2011, finds that writing support services have a direct effect on student writing, and then you put the page number in there. If you use an attribution phase when you're paraphrasing, you would say, according to Smith, 2011, students who utilize writing support increase their independence and confidence in writing. A third example is a summary. So you could say, Smith's study, 2011, argues for increased writing support for graduate students. This is a table with examples of attribution phases. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but I might just list a couple of them. There's acknowledges, you can use agrees, or you can say, researchers found that ... or research shows that. So these are just a couple of examples of attribution phases that you can use in your work. So let's talk a little bit about in-text citation guidelines. So first, I wanted to go over what you do when you cite one work by one author. So that would look like this: Walker 2000, compare reaction times, or you can also say, in a recent study of reaction times, Walker 2000. So that's just an example. You can also cite one work by two authors. So that would look somewhat similar. So you could say Walker and Smith 2000 compared reaction times, or you can also say, in a study of reaction times, Walker and Smith 2000, and then you continue on with the sentence. So this is a list taken from the APA website. It's actually from our APA free tutorial online. You do not have to buy the manual for this. We call this the magic citation chart. So as you can see, it basically gives you everything in detail on how to cite in text. So if we look at the first example, one work by one author, the first time you cite the source in the text, you would just say Walker 2007, and then if you want to cite it again, you would say the same thing, Walker 2007. However, if we look at one work by four authors, then you would actually cite, or you would list all the authors' last names. So you would say one work by four authors. As you can see, first citation in text is Bradley, Ramirez, Sue, and Walsh, 2006. The second time and third and fourth time and all the other times that you cite the same source, you would actually say Bradley et al. So you wouldn't list the last names of all the authors the second time and all the other times that you cite it. Once is enough. Another thing that students get a little confused about is when to list all the authors' last names in the text when they're citing. So the general APA rule is 6 authors. So as you can see, if we look at one work by 6 or more authors, the first time that you cite that, you would actually say Wasserstein et al. 2005. So you would not list all the authors because it's by 6 or more authors. And then the second time that you cite that same source, you would still say Wasserstein et al. 2005. Okay, so with direct quotations, those are words that a writer takes directly from the source. And these must be cited by the author's last name and then the year and then the page number or the paragraph number. So you see this a lot when you're using websites. So if you're quoting a book or an article, you would put the author's last name and then the year of the publication, and then the page number where you got that quote from. If you're using a website, you would do the same thing. You would use the author's last name, the year of publication, or the year that the website was last updated, and then you would put the paragraph number in there. Most websites do not have a page number. Some websites do, but mostly not. So when that's the case, you would just use the paragraph number. If you get it from a report, you would do the same thing. You would use the author's last name, the year of the publication, and then the conclusion section, paragraph, whatever paragraph it is. So in this case, it would be paragraph 6.